All right, today we're going to zero in on just one day in the American agricultural markets, August 26th, 2025. And what we're going to find is this wild story of incredible abundance crashing right into a sudden, and I mean deafening, absence. It's a paradox that's playing out right now. So let's just kick things off with that one critical question. And for American soybean farmers, look, this is not some thought experiment. This is their reality, and it's unfolding as we speak.
And this is the number that really tells the whole story. 0. That's the total amount of new crop U.S. soybeans that China has on the books to buy. Not a reduced amount, not a little bit less than last year. 0. Zilch. And this chart, wow, it just visualizes the sheer scale of this crisis. I mean, just look at that drop-off. This time last year, China had already bought 2 million metric tons. The year before that, it was over 5 million. And today, the demand has completely fallen off a cliff. Okay, so what happens when your biggest customer just ghosts you? Let's dig into the immediate shockwaves. In this first part, we're going to explore what it really means when a buyer this big just vanishes from the market. You know, this is where it really hits a farmer's wallet, and it all comes down to this concept called basis. The easiest way to think about it is it's the local markup, or in this case, a markdown on the global price. With no ships heading to China from the Pacific Northwest, the local grain elevators in states like North Dakota have nowhere to send their beans, so the basis collapses, and the actual cash price the farmer gets paid, it goes right down with it. Which, of course, leads to this massive and kind of unsettling question. Has China actually engineered a situation where they just don't need the American farmer anymore? And here's the thing you've got to understand. This was no accident. Not at all. China has been preparing for this exact moment for years, building out a long-term strategy to insulate itself from being dependent on U.S. agriculture. And their approach isn't just one thing. It's this really deliberate three-pronged strategy. First, they built up these enormous stockpiles, which gives them a huge safety buffer. Second, they started ramping up their own domestic production. And third, and this one is key, they went all in on Brazil, becoming the #1 customer for Brazil's absolutely massive soybean crop. So the conclusion here is, well, it's pretty sobering, but you can't avoid it. For right now, the answer is yes. They can get by. They've successfully created a scenario where they can wait out any trade tension or political issue. They don't need to pick up the phone and buy from the U.S. Now, if you could just walk across the road from the soybean field to the corn field, the entire story just flips on its head. See, the problem for corn isn't a lack of buyers, it's a fierce debate about how big this supply really is. And that really gets to the heart of the two very different problems facing America's biggest crops. For soybeans, it's a crisis of demand. Who is going to buy this stuff? And for corn, it's a mystery of supply. How much is actually out there in the fields? And here's that debate in black and white. You've got the official government USDA forecast, which is incredibly optimistic. They're predicting a massive 188.8 bushels per acre. But then you've got private tours, like the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, where people are actually walking the fields, and they're coming back with a much lower number, 182.7. Now that 6-bushel gap, that represents millions and millions of tons of corn and a whole lot of uncertainty in the market. Okay, let's totally switch gears for a second. Let's pivot to a market that's telling a story of boom, not gloom. It's a perfect illustration of just how complex the farm economy is. Because while grain farmers are struggling, cattle ranchers are seeing record highs. And it is, in every sense of the phrase, a completely different story. We're talking relentless demand and prices that are just soaring. This quote from analyst Oliver Slopa just captures the feeling perfectly. There's no uncertainty here. The chart has been moving in one direction, up. As he says, it's been a dream run for anyone in the cattle business. So why the boom? Well, it's this powerful combination of factors. Every single time the price dips even a little bit, buyers rush right in. The underlying cash market, what people are actually paying, is at record levels. And most importantly, despite all the economic pressures out there, you and I, the consumers, we just keep buying beef. Demand is strong. But what does all of this, the Chinese strategy, the cornmeal debate, the cattle boom, what does it actually mean for the financial survival of an individual farmer? Let's bring this all right back down to the ground level. This number right here, this is the harsh reality. In parts of North Dakota, this is the cash price a farmer might get for a bushel of soybeans, $8.97.
And that is a direct result of that big zero we saw at the very beginning.
Let's just break down the brutal math. A typical farmer with 1,000 acres of soybeans might spend around $11.50 to produce 1 bushel, but they're only getting about $9 for it when they sell it. That's a loss on every single bushel, which adds up to a staggering $90,000 hole in their budget.
And, the farms in this part of the country are often much larger. So for a 10,000-acre operation, that same math multiplies into a potential loss that's getting close to $1 million. It's just a devastating financial picture, and it's driven by a single missing customer.
Which leaves us with this one final question to think about. In a world where we have the technology and the ability to produce these incredible record harvests, who really controls the price of our food? Is it the farmer who grows it? Or is it a politician or a planner thousands of miles away whose single decision can erase a farmer's entire livelihood? Who really holds the power?